what's up, Los Angeles? Welcome to the Rams Skinny here on the LA Football Network. Somewhat of a somber day, but overall, I think still a positive based on how the season went. But Rams fall to the Lions in the wild card in a thrilling game, 24-23. Stafford's return. It was a ton of fun. It was unfortunate the outcome, but man, what a great season for this Rams team, and the future of this organization is extremely bright. So we'll get into all that and talk game and all that good stuff. But joining me as always, my good pal, the managing editor of our great website, LA Football Network, LAFNetwork.com, and our Rams beat writer, Ryan Skinny T. Anderson. What's up, my brother? How are you doing today?
I am doing pretty good. You know, I'm still loving playoff football, despite the Rams' tough loss. But like you're saying, optimistic views. There's no retirement talk of any of the main players, any of the main pieces for the Rams team. So you gotta feel good about that.
Yeah, absolutely great to lead off with that. Unfortunately, which we'll get to the end of the episode, they did already lose one coach, Coach Henderson, the great defensive line coach, staying in LA. So it's kind of a bittersweet for this network, as becoming the co-defensive coordinator, D-line coach at USC. So we'll talk about that at the end of the show, but we want to talk mainly about this game. Coverage for the Rams Skinny and the LA Football Network does not stop just because the season's over. So later on in the week, we'll kind of do a full season breakdown and kind of like an exit interview, if you will, of the whole season in totality. But today we'll just try to focus on, this tough loss that's, not even 24 hours old yet, but a great game at that. So excited to kind of get into it with you, Skinny T. We were talking obviously throughout, as we always do, but we didn't get to watch the game together. We were hoping, I was out of town, I'm back now. We were hoping that they moved on, so then next week we could have done something big and been together, but unfortunately we won't get to do that, but we'll get all into it. So show, as always, brought to you by our friends at Underdog Fantasy. Head to underdogfantasy.com or the Underdog Fantasy app. Use our promo code on your first deposit, Rams LAFB. That's all one word, Rams LAFB. You're going to get a match deposit bonus up to $100. I had a big pick'em going on in that Rams-Lions game. I hit all the boosters. So you pick 2 to 5 players, and you're picking over-unders on certain stats, so passing yards, touchdowns, all this, and they have like things that are harder to hit if you haven't done it. It can boost your total output. So like by 3 times, 2 times, 1.75 times. So I played 5 all boosted ones. It was a $15 was what I wagered, and I could have won up to $1,200 or something. And I only missed on one.
Oh.
And guess what one that was?
Oh, Kyren
Williams rushing attempts. I took the over, of course, and they only ran the ball 13 times. There's only 15 and a half rushes, so I took the over on that. We talked about in the pre-show, we talked about this Lions stout defensive line, but I thought, they in order to neutralize the pass rush, they needed to run the ball more. So I was like, all right, Kyren, over 15, let's see it. Didn't help they got hurt at the end of the game, but still came up a short, and I missed out on 1,200 buckaroos. But anyway, Underdog Fantasy, that's your opportunity to win some cash back. Rams LAFB is that promo code once again. So Skinny T, 24-23. You don't get brownie points for losing closely, but based on what this team looked like they would be, got to give them some brownie points for how they, obviously finished this season and battled in this game, especially with how this game started offensively for the Lions and defensively for the Rams. Looked like it was going to be a blowout to an extent. And the defense came to play in that second half, which we'll get to. But give me your, as always in our recap shows, your 3,000-foot lens view of this game.
0-3. 0-3 in the red zone.
Mm-hmm.
That's my winner take all stat of the game, lock of the week, whatever you want to call it. That's the frustrating number right there for me. A lot of good things to take away from it. Puka Nacua looked fantastic. Stafford, just every arm angle that you can throw a ball in, just zipping it around everywhere. That's, all those things great to see. But, we were texting during the game that first Detroit Lions drive. They just drove down the field, put it in the end zone. We commiserated on that point, and I said they need 7. They need to respond with 7. They responded with 3, and they lost by 1. So,
Yep.
I have a whole article about my frustrations about McVay's conservative play calling. It's out there if you want to go read it, and I can talk more about it on here for sure. But what are your takeaways?
Yeah, make sure to check that out at LAFBnetwork.com. We'll put a link in the description as well. Yeah, I mean, it's rare, I feel like, that statistically speaking, both teams can be so almost exact, and the score outcome also is almost exact. I mean, a 1-point game. When you look at down the stat line, Skinny, time of possession, Rams 30 minutes, 5 seconds, Lions 29 minutes, 55. Offensive plays, both teams 55. Penalties, Rams with 4, Lions with 5. Penalty yards, Rams 36, Lions 34. When you look at fourth down conversions, each 1 for 1. I mean, go down the list, it's so close, except for the one that matters most, which you just alluded to, and it's that red zone efficiency. Lions 3 for 3, 100%. Rams 0 for 3, 0%. Obviously settled for field goals there. So that's the game. It was a 1-point game. Everything else, third down efficiency, 3 of 9, 3 of 9, both teams. I mean, it's insane how closely tied both these teams were in this game. And what it came down to was 3 field goals versus 3 touchdowns, and you lose by 1, and you're going to Cabo now. And so it's been an issue all season. We've talked about it in the show all season. You've written multiple articles about it all season. In this game specifically, in your mind, was it execution? Lions just buckling down in the red zone and just playing better? Or was it, do you think, kind of play calling or scripted play calling or unimaginative play calling, if you will, down in the red area? What do you think?
Yeah, there was that throw to Cooper Kupp that seemed a little bit ill-conceived. You know, you're looking at Kyren Williams, even with Detroit Lions front seven playing like they did, 4.7 yards per carry. You know, it's, you know, there's a simple arithmetic when it comes to picking up yards. If you need 6 and you can pick up 4, you only got 2 left, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know,
nice. Well done.
Yeah. Obviously it gets a bit more complicated than that, but you know, McVay just, you know, he all season long, he just hasn't been able to find the sauce or the cojones to, you know, call those plays that put the Rams in the position to score touchdowns when they're in the red zone. And I think on that first drive, McVay scripts all those plays. That's his drive. I mean, he spends probably a good amount of time thinking through exactly how it's all going to play out. But then when you get down into and goal situations where you're just a few yards away, he just seems like he has no idea. You know, all of that offensive genius that you saw all drive that first drive and other drives all season, you know, it just seems to all leave his head. And he can't figure out how to finish it off. And you know, I would have gone for it on a 4th there. Nobody's paying me to you know, make that assessment there, but that's, you know, I'm, you know, every defense is going to get a bit better because in the red zone, because you only have to defend so far back. You've got 2 sidelines and then a 3rd sideline that's helping you out. So it's not easy, but you know, over the season, they were really good, actually scoring touchdowns when they're in the red zone, 64%, I think, somewhere around there, which puts them in the top 5 in the league. And you know, it's just, you gotta, this is the biggest stage of the year, and you know, it's like you're taking a class. And you've worked really hard. You've done all the assignments. You wrote the paper. You handed everything on time. But you got to go to the last class to make sure your attendance record is there. And instead of getting an A, you settle for a D. You know, in that class. And that's you're just settling for a D. And you know, that's the difference in this game. I mean, you know, Dan Campbell went for it on 4th down in the red zone, scored a touchdown there. And, you know, he, you know, to the, you know, my dog's in here. I don't know if you can hear her.
All good, barely. Yeah.
Okay.
She's not to hang out.
You know, fortune favors the bold. You know?
Yeah.
That's the case in this game.
Yeah. Especially when you can execute. Because many would argue fortune does not favor the bold in case of Brandon Staley and the Chargers, but they just didn't execute on 4th down. The Lions have been much more overall efficient in executing, specifically in this one. And yeah, you know, I haven't watched the all 22 of this game yet. So, seeing the full field, but it always just feels like, and specifically in this game, when they get to the red zone, the play calling is just kind of stale. Like it's just very basic, like, receivers all just kind of running like, dig routes or posts, and just Stafford's got to force something in, hoping some guy gets open. And usually there's just not open, and it's harder, but the creativity seems to leave. The run always gets abandoned. It's always then 3 straight passes. And what's a bummer is on that one you mentioned with Cooper Kupp, he actually had him. Like if he, and Stafford played phenomenal in this game, which we'll get to more. I mean, no fault to his if they came up short, but it was like the one throw where it's just a little bit off, where he just kind of, I almost like Kupp was expecting it on a different shoulder and just kind of got himself turned around a little bit and just a little bit off, but he had a step and had the sideline on the end zone open if he would have, been able to get there. So in that instance, it's an execution thing. But I think a lot of the play calling is just, there's not that creativity down at the red zone that springs guys open that you see other teams able to do, which, McVay is one of the best in the business in calling plays. So it is strange. And then, in terms of the run, they just abandon it in the red zone. They abandon it in a lot of games anyway, but certainly in the red zone. But even the few times they do run, it's like that's the one time the offensive line that doesn't quite get the push that we see in other instances. But I think also it's just because it's not at the forefront of mind in this offense when they get to the red zone. Like they know they're passing. So it's unfortunate. It's that was the difference in the game. And when it's 1 point and seconds and minutes and one first down to seal the game, I mean, it's a game of inches. And it came down to, those inches and that situation of the red zone that, one of those is a touchdown. The Rams win this game. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, 100%. And one of the things about defense in the red zone that does make it more difficult, specifically for the Rams, is defenses are get more physical down there because they have that backstop. They're allowed to play a little bit more rough and tumble and get after guys, and that's always a kryptonite for McVay and the Rams. Is he gets a little bit gun shy when the defenses start playing super aggressively, which the Lions did all game long.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to talk about Stafford for a minute. First, maybe game related, and then about his actual play. I can appreciate Detroit getting behind Jared Goff and rallying and falling in love with him. Like that's great. Like he's their quarterback now. This is year 3 with him being there. He's played great. Obviously led them to their first playoff win in 30 whatever years. But I don't want to say it rubbed me the wrong way because everyone has the right to do whatever. It wasn't malicious, but I was a little surprised that Stafford got booed as badly as he did. And even leading up to this game, a lot of, kind of mean talk from the fan base and whatnot. And I was surprised by that because the guy that was there for 12 years gave his all. It wasn't like a bad breakup. I get that he asked to be traded, but it wasn't like a bad breakup by any means. And the Lions obviously got a lot in return because, he made it known. And, it was a situation where it worked out best case, I think, for both parties. I mean, the Rams got obviously Stafford here, and the Rams won a Super Bowl in year 1, and the Lions got a bunch of, good picks, and Jared Goff has ended up playing great for him. So it seemed like it was amicable. Were you surprised by that? Because I was just surprised. I thought he would be welcomed back with kind of open arms.
Yeah, I kind of heard conflicting reports heading into the game. On one hand, there was, some Detroit people that were saying that everybody's so positive about Matthew Stafford. And then on the other hand, I heard another report where it was just all this terrible stuff being spouted online. And, it's always very disheartening to see poor fan behavior in the world out there. People getting in fights in the stands over, who's wearing what color and who's mouthing off, and everybody needs to cool it and remember that Stafford's a human. There was that kind of sideline report heading into it talking about Stafford and his daughters had to ask his wife who are we rooting for in this game, because they got Detroit game on and they're rooting for Detroit when obviously they're not playing each other, but I mean, like, Detroit is obviously something that is important to Matthew Stafford, and the fan base should know that. Detroit should know that. And, we have a lot of Goff supporters still in the LA Rams fan base. And I'm sure there's plenty of, I don't think there's any doubt in any Rams fans' minds that they got the better quarterback in the trade.
There shouldn't be.
There shouldn't be. Yeah, definitely not.
This
so
game even showed it.
And they got a big trophy now to bear witness to that. So,
yeah.
But it's always silly to me when people gotta get mad at a person because they're wearing a different color jersey.
Yeah. I just don't like. I was at the Rams game at SoFi when Goff returned. The regular season game, was it 21? I think it was 21. No, 22. It would have been 20. Yeah, 21. The Super Bowl run. 21 and obviously different situation because Goff didn't ask for a trade. He was traded kind of in the dark. Didn't know it was coming. But he got standing ovation, beloved by this city. And again, I get Stafford asked to be traded, but he was there for 12 years. It wasn't like he was there for 3 and it's like, I'm over the city. I'm not re-signing unless you trade me. Like he was 12 years, gave it his all, super involved in the community, him and his wife. And again, it wasn't a bad breakup. I mean, it was one of those mutual, again, we're not in the building, but from everything we've heard, it was a mutual, hey, I think it's time that we just kind of, part ways. And I want to go somewhere that I think is going to contend. At the time, the Lions weren't, and they've done a great turn. This was before Dan Campbell was hired. It was just a fresh start for that organization. So it was just weird to see the response the fans gave him. And then even after the game, I think, because he's always spoken so highly about the city of Detroit fan base, and then asked after the game by a reporter, obviously tough to loss, blah, 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 but how do you feel about the city of Detroit and the Lions winning their first game? And he basically said, I'm happy for that. Happy for those guys in that locker room. Happy for the team. And that was it. Didn't say anything about the city. Didn't say anything about the fans. Obviously he was a little disappointed with how, they responded to him as well. And, rightfully so. I get it.
Yeah. And, if I was forced as a football player to play for Matt Patricia, I would demand a trade too.
Yeah. Yeah. Remember, this is before if Dan Campbell was there, he might be never requested a trade. Cool. We're making moves. This is before Brad Holmes, before Dan Campbell, before Ben Johnson, before all that. He had to deal with a lot of bad coaches. Had some good ones, but obviously the end there was pretty rough. So you can understand why he wanted out. But anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because I just thought that was, it reminded me. I know fans, our listeners love when I bring up, my Denver fandom. But it reminded me a lot of when Carmelo Anthony left the Nuggets, and similar situation, third overall pick with the Nuggets, led them to the playoffs in 9 straight years, had never been done in franchise history, but they just could never get over the hump. And so he ended up asking to be traded. My opinion as a fan was all right, dude gave it his all. He was beloved by the fan base. He loved the fan base, but you know what? He's been here, whatever it was, 10, 11 years, wanted kind of a fresh start. It wasn't a trade me or else. It was hey, I think it's time we trade. He was traded. Nuggets got a ton of stuff back for him and ended up kind of best for both parties once again. And yet he's hated now by the Denver fan base. Still to this day, it's hard for he now talks about has always loved Denver and now is he's been on podcasts I blah blah blah. And so it's just man, why does that have to happen? It's one thing if a player is trade me or else, or I'm not signing or else. Max Crosby doing the whole if you don't hire Antonio Pierce, I'm out. That's a line in the sand. This is more of a hey, I think it's time, mutually agree for both parties. Let's just have a fresh start. I don't have a problem.
Hey, I'm all for the Raiders hiring somebody other than Antonio Pierce, and maybe the Rams can pick up an actual edge rusher.
Yeah, I'm down with that. Yeah, that's what we got to be praying for. Not, we cover the Chargers here on the LA Football Network, so I think we all want Jim Harbaugh to go to the Chargers. So we don't want that. But if the Raiders can f this up and go hire I don't even know. They've only interviewed, I think, one person so far. They just interviewed Leslie Frazier. So nothing against Leslie Frazier, but hey, hire Leslie Frazier, Raiders, and then we can get Max Crosby here in LA. That'd be great.
I think Bill Belichick seems like the right answer for the Raiders. I'll just throw that out there.
I would say yes, except, and he obviously is very different, and this is way off topic here. He obviously is very different than Josh McDaniels, but McDaniels tried to instill the Patriot way, and it failed miserably. So even though Belichick is the godfather of the Patriot way. I just think that organization needs to be run differently. It's more got to be player focused. And
yeah, I mean, I just have no faith in the Raiders to make a good decision about
exactly,
anything.
which is
So
great, which is good, which is
yeah,
good for all involved. All right. So let's get back to this game here, and let's end maybe with defense talk, and maybe we got to talk about Puka Nacua a little bit here too. I mean, dude absolutely balled out, but it's about his defense and the job Raheem Morris done, because we may have seen the last game Raheem Morris coached as a Ram, not in a bad way, but because he's probably going to be a head coach in the coming years. The interviews keep rolling in. He just got requested to interview with the Seahawks as well. Has already had three other interviews. So he's probably going to get interviewed by almost every opening out there. And the game started rough. Three straight touchdowns on 3 straight possessions for the Lions. And then no pressure, couldn't stop a nosebleed. And then all of a sudden, get to that second half, 3 points was all the Lions could muster, and they couldn't even move the ball. They were dialing up different pressures. We and you were texting about the game, like they need to do an Ernest Jones stunts and blitzes. Sure enough, they do it. Sure enough, it works. But your just thoughts on the job from Raheem Morris and this defense after kind of the first quarter and a half.
The defense is what it is. It's got Akhello Witherspoon as their best cornerback. He'd be a number 2, number 3 guy on pretty much any other team.
Yep.
You got Michael Hoyt trying to just contain Jahmyr Gibbs on the edge sometimes.
Oh,
you got on the other side, you got
real quick. The one thing I'll say that I don't know why, and I don't know if this is Raheem Morris's call. Obviously, he's the boss on the defense, but why Michael Hoyt is like the highest percentage as a edge rusher in coverage. That is one thing where I'm like, come on, Raheem, what are we doing here? Like, you've done so many things good, but why is Michael Hoyt out in coverage? He just shouldn't be. I'm not saying he's not a good player. He's improved drastically this year in so many areas, but you cannot cover the potential rookie of the year in Sam Laporta, and you have him covering Dallas Goedert, you have him covering all these different tight ends. Like, that's the one thing I'm like, what are we doing here? Sorry, just had to jump in there.
No, it's the perfect.
And that was one of the touchdowns.
And Byron Young, he's got a lot of potential. He still has got to grow and develop into an NFL pass rusher. But I think he got 1 or 2 pressures in on this game. And I say all of this to say what we've been saying all season, which is they find a way to keep the Rams in a game. Mm-hmm. I came to the conclusion a couple of weeks ago that this defense isn't going to go out and win the Rams a game. They're not going to force that, crucial turnover. They're not going to, get that crucial sack that there's just, it's not going to be the thing that's going to dominate, but they've kept the Rams in just about every game so far this in the season. And they kept them in this one. And, the Lions offense is no joke. One of the best offensive lines, a handful of really fantastic weapons. Amon-Ra St. Brown is really emerging. Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery are both solid backs. So, they boat raced a lot of teams this year and they were off to a good start, but Raheem Morris and Ernest Jones is just a fantastic blitzer. It's not the best answer you can get to have. It's not the best answer you can have to get pressure. But they found a way, and that's what they've been doing all season, and that's why he's getting such high marks and attention for being a head coach, and it's a long time coming.
Yeah, exactly, and great job, and he will be probably I think he will 100% be a head coach, but if he doesn't, obviously that's great for the Rams. He'll be back. But I think he will be gone, and then we'll see what the Rams do, as we'll get to here in the show here in a second about another big loss as a assistant coaches go. But yeah, just speaking of the defense, we'll get way into free agency and whatnot. But I think it's clear what this team needs is a true talented edge rusher. Byron Young is going to be good. I mean, he's going to keep growing. But and Michael Hoyt, I think, is a solid rotational piece. But those two as your starting edges, like they need someone with a little bit more talent at that position. So that's going to be, and then obviously, a lockdown corner or just, another corner if they bring back Witherspoon, which I think they absolutely should. I would, and again, we'll get into free agency. I'm not going to throw tons of names out, but I would love to see them go after Adoree Jackson, who's going to be a free agent from New England or New York Giants. Bring him home, baby. He's a Trojan legend at USC in the return game, and probably goes down as you could argue the best corner at USC. They haven't had a ton of great corners. They've had a ton of great safeties, a ton of great linebackers, but at the cornerback position, he may be one of the best. So bring him home. Would be awesome to see, and obviously go get an edge. So that is going to be a point of emphasis, which we'll talk probably a lot about in the next kind of 2 months or so, along with draft coverage, which, hey, they'll have every draft pick, which is great. And if, the only benefit if they lose Raheem is obviously you're going to get those 2 comp picks for losing him to a head coaching job. So, but unless there's anything for you to add, let's close with this. Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, let's stick with this. We'll end with Puka. So because we're talking coaches anyway, Coach Henne, our guy, Eric Henderson, bittersweet as our USC coverage. Love seeing him go to USC. I mean, Lincoln Riley is making no jokes about that defensive staff. What he has done in the offseason, overhauling that staff, is impressive. If you're a Trojan fan, make sure to check out our Salute Detroit podcast, where I'm recording that right after. We'll be talking all about the defensive staff. But so if you haven't checked it out yet, Salute Detroit podcast on the LA Football Network. But for the Rams, this is a huge, huge loss, Skinny T. So let me ask you this first. So 2 things. And we kind of texted this, so I'll just let you talk about it. Does it surprise you that he has not gotten more DC considerations around the league? Been with the Rams since 21, or no, excuse me, been with the Rams since 19. So almost 6 seasons here. So A, does it surprise you around the league? And B, does it surprise you the Rams themselves and Sean McVay haven't given him more kind of DC consideration? And when Staley, they go out of house, then Staley leaves, they go out of house again, bringing Raheem Morris. So how do you feel about that, kind of those dichotomies?
Yeah, it's strange. It's just weird that a guy that is so accomplished at his position doesn't get the attention that he deserves. And there's so many things that go into that, and we're not in the building every day. We don't have those conversations with Coach Henne. I would love to ask him that question. A couple of years ago, who's calling, who's knocking at the door, and the offensive side of the McVay coaching staff has always been poached. It's always, guys are all over the league, tally them up around the league that are the Shanahan, McVay, Washington, Commanders, the Washington football team, just list of coaches and coordinators that come out of that now, including, D'Amico Ryans and Bobby Slowick, and, just keeps going. And, but the defensive side gets a little bit overlooked, and, and I'm not sure why, because you got one guy, Aaron Donald, who I don't know how much coaching that guy needs, but he keeps getting better. I mean, he's not getting worse, at least, that's for sure. I think he's had one of the best years of his career. And then next to him, he's had to install a new guy like every year. It's been kind of a revolving door every year, every other year. And he turns a guy like Greg Gaines into just a really solid starter, Super Bowl winner. And then he takes Kobie Turner, rookie year, midway through, just figures out how to turn it on. And that guy's just a beast now. One of the best out there, at his age. So, yeah.
And you can look at, sorry not to jump in, but you could even look at a guy like Sebastian Joseph Day. And I don't mean this in any disrespect, but, 6th round pick, really came on with the Rams, goes to the Chargers, and, wasn't bad with the Chargers, but certainly didn't have the production he had with the Rams. And now he's a rotational depth piece with the Niners. So, that's another player who could just contribute to like what Coach Henne has done.
Yeah. So I'm happy for him that he's going to shot to be a co-defensive coordinator there at USC, and that's exciting to see what they're going to do with the defense with Lynn is his name, right?
Yeah, D'Anton Lynn. Yeah, there you go.
I'm catching
You're
up.
getting more ingrained in college. Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be fascinating, and I'm excited for him, and hopefully he'll get some attention, maybe within the college ranks to be a DC just coming out of that, and maybe he'll come back once, defensive coordinator for the Rams at one point.
Yeah, that'd be great. So, just, huge loss for the Rams, and just what a great player. I think we can talk more in the next episode because I have like some more deep thoughts. We're already getting up against the time here, but about why McVay doesn't necessarily promote from within. And he's always, treated his staff very well, and but it seems like when it comes to the actual coordinator, he always kind of goes outside. And so I have some thoughts on that. So there's a little teaser. Got to tune in next episode to hear why I think that is. But yeah, happy for Henny. I'm super pumped. Obviously, staying in LA. If he had to leave, there's no other place I'd rather him leave to, than staying here in LA and going to SC. But man, it's going to be, especially now if you lose Raheem. And I guess that's one thought about it too, is if Raheem is gone, the new DC will want to rebuild his staff anyway. It's rare when you look at the Rams, from Wade Phillips to Brandon Staley to Raheem Morris, a lot of the positional staff has stayed relatively the same. There's been a couple changes, but Henny's been here, since before Brandon Staley. Aubrey Pleasant has been here since before Brandon Staley. Evero just finally left, last year. He was from way before, and, all these guys. So this will be maybe the first time where the new DC will basically revamp the entire defensive staff, which, we'll get into if and when that does happen. So let's end with this. Puka Nacua. What a baller, dude. What a baller. Absolutely crushed it. 9 receptions, 181 yards, and a touchdown. So I'm going to ask you this. First of all, we don't even need to talk about Rookie of the Year. It's a regular season award. CJ Stroud also balled out in his playoff game, but those don't matter. It's a regular season award, so we can move past that. Puka Nacua absolutely deserves it, in my opinion. CJ Stroud will probably win it because it's a QB award, and and he had a great season. I'll take anything away from him. But in this game, how do I want to ask this? Let me just ask it to you like this, and this will kind of be a teaser too, which we'll get into throughout the regular season. Is Puka Nacua now truly wide receiver 1 for the Rams? And have we seen kind of the swan song of greatness from Cooper Kupp? Is he now kind of more of a figurehead than he is a staple in this offense?
Yeah, our good friend and coworker here at LAFB, Jamal Modney, he says he's the Klay Thompson of the NFL. Cooper Kupp is. And I want to see. I want a chance for Cooper to get completely healthy over this offseason, head into 2024 with fresh legs and healed the tendons, and because it just didn't seem like he has been completely healthy all year long. So I'd like to see that, but it is nice to know that they do have a viable option in Puka Nacua, a record-breaking option. Yeah, he broke another rookie record with this game with his 181 yards. He's now the record holder for the most yards. So, it's fifth rounder once again. I just want to point that out. Coming in, they just pluck this guy out of obscurity and turn him into a star. And and it's not all on the Rams. He's got a lot to do with that. He wanted it. He was in the meeting rooms. He was, he was flying, buzzing around McVay and Stafford and Kupp and just taking in everything he could. So I think that, they have him as a true number 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It seems like, again, I'm not willing to say that yet, not because he couldn't be number 1. I'm just not willing to say Cooper Kupp's not that guy yet. It certainly is looking that way, the way the kind of season unfolded, and even the way Stafford just started looking more to Puka than Cooper. But I want to see a full off season of him being healthy and see how the season starts next year. Either way, they're in great hands, and with this receiving room and where it's at, and it's great to hear. Obviously, things can change, but based on all the press conferences at the end of the game, we all knew McVay was coming back. That came out earlier, but he just seems fired up and totally revamped by this season. Stafford said he's coming back. Cooper Kupp, coming back. Aaron Donald probably coming back. So, it looks like we can go into this offseason with adding to the success they already had with a lot of cap room, with a lot of draft picks. And then now they will be, they were this year, surprisingly, but they'll be a true contender heading into 24 with all their pieces back. And I just want to see Cooper Kupp have a true offseason to become that Triple Crown winner that he was. I don't think he'll ever be as good as he was in 21. I think that's past just, 2 years now later, all the injuries and all that, he's just on the other side of 30. So naturally there's going to be some downtread. Receivers in general after 30 all tend to drop off. But I think he can still be very good. And just out of respect, I'm not willing to say he's not wide receiver 1 yet, but Puka Nacua certainly is good enough to be. So either way, they're in good hands.
Yeah, no, I'm not trying to disrespect the guy at all.
You're not at all. So
in general, I don't want that to get twisted. But in the event that he's not able to, get to that level once again, the Rams do have a guy. They got a guy, and that's all you need.
Yeah, exactly. So tough loss, tough end of the season, but a hell of a season. Excuse me, that it was. The Rams finish, I guess, officially 10-8, but make the playoffs, lose by 1, 24-23 at the hand of the Detroit Lions. Hats off to Jared Goff and the Lions, but the Rams will be back. I will say I'm definitely rooting for the Lions now to win it all, or at least make it from the NFC. Would be fun to see just with that story. But anyway, Rams fans don't need to hear that or want to hear that. So tough season, but hey, the coverage does not stop here at the LA Football Network at the Rams Skinny. We'll be back just as usual in a couple days with more Rams Skinny. Thanks all for hanging out with us, tuning in. For Skinny T, I'm Ryan Dyrud. We'll talk to you all here in just a couple days.